Hello and welcome to Lansing Pulse. I'm Ken Miller, joined as always by City Administrator Tim Vandall. Tim, the Lansing City Council made the difficult decision this week to mandate the wearing of masks in public gathering places, and that's going to be in effect until further notice. Talk a little bit about the details of that decision and what it means moving forward. And I know we've posted a lot of things on the website. You'll be able to see it on Channel 2, social media, a lot of commentary on social media, but maybe just the highlights of what this means.
Yeah. Well, so like you had said, masks would be required in public places, especially indoors. But, you know, we have had a lot of comments about it and a lot of citizen feedback. And I know it was very important to the council to listen to the citizen feedback, try to understand it, and see what we could do to maybe make the requirement a little bit easier to handle for some people. So I know some of the exemptions that were discussed were medical related, and that's pretty clearly listed in the ordinance that, you know, if there is a medical condition that, you know, would stop someone from wearing a mask, you know, that's excluded. Children who are under 5 years old aren't required to wear masks. If you're in a restaurant and you're sitting down at your table, you're not required to wear a mask. So, I mean, there are a lot of exemptions in there because we did want to make this you know, a reasonable ordinance. The other thing that I would say too, you know, it was important to the City Council that our ordinance be similar-ish to Leavenworth's. Mm-hmm. We wanted it to be consistent because our cities border each other, and there's Lansing residents who go to Leavenworth for business and Leavenworth residents who come to Lansing. So it was important that Leavenworth's and Lansing's ordinances would be similar. But not only that, I believe it's also consistent with the rules that Fort Leavenworth has rolled out recently as well. So you look at, you know, some of the larger hubs in Leavenworth County, Fort Leavenworth, Leavenworth, Lansing, all of the rules are pretty consistent. And the goal is just to stop the spread and to keep people safe. You know, another really fascinating discussion that occurred was at a previous City Council meeting. And we had a City Council member maybe express a little bit of skepticism and say, you know, I'm not sure we're going to get 100% compliance on this. And that's absolutely true. But one of our other council members had said, you know, if 50% mask wearing compliance goes up to 90%, that's beneficial from a public health standpoint. And I thought that was a very good point that person made. So it's kind of a moving target right now. We understand that that it's challenging to enforce. But another thing that I would say too, especially these first 2 or 3 weeks, the big goal is education to our citizens. We're really hoping for voluntary compliance, but we also just want to educate our citizens about the rules. You know, a couple of the items that the City Council directed me to do was to offer a free box of disposable masks to any business that requests it. So we're not just implementing this ordinance and saying sink or swim, we're implementing the ordinance and saying, hey, if you don't have masks or if you can't find them, we will give them to your business and you can offer them to customers who maybe just genuinely forgot to wear one. And we also put a sign template in our letter to every business so they can sign something on their door, and so it's consistent throughout town. So again, I do feel like there was a lot of thought that went into it. The City Council understood it was a controversial decision, right, and it was a tough decision for them to make. I really do believe that. But again, I would say the public health of our citizens was paramount to them. And I believe that's why they made the decision they did.
Right, and anybody that's interested in seeing the exact text, the exact wording of this ordinance can go to lansingks.org, and right there on the front page, the home page, right-hand column under popular links, you will be able to click on that and see the 5 or 6 page document. It doesn't take that long to read. Anyway, staying, of course, with the COVID theme here, the City of Lansing has designated CARES Act funding for several items and projects around the city. So I think we've talked about this a little bit the last couple of times we've gotten together, but maybe just an update on, I understand we received funding from the county and the county was basically dispersing the federal funding, but talk about the projects that are here.
So we've had a few different projects going on. So some of the things that are eligible for CARES Act funding are items that make teleworking and attending meetings easier. So one of the things that we're doing, we're making some technological improvements to our city council chambers. That way it'll be easier for citizens to watch city council meetings from the comfort of their home. So that's one of the big projects we're doing. I want to say that's maybe $50,000 or so. We're looking at doing some e-signage along K7, and the thought process here was there's 25,000 cars driving up and down K7 every day.
Right.
If we have an e-sign out there and it can say vaccine distribution at community center X date through X date,
right,
that would be beneficial and it would help get the word out to people. We could put things on there that say, this meeting has been canceled due to COVID, or this is happening due to COVID, remember to wash your hands, whatever. So I think the goal with the e-signage was just to give us another avenue to reach our citizens, especially because, again, K7 is such a heavily traveled road. Another project that's happening that citizens might not realize, we have these e-ticketing systems for our police department, and right now we only have 2 or 3 of them. So the officers would have to hand them back and forth and whatever.
Contact.
Contact,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
So one of the items that we're using CARES Act money for is to purchase more of these e-ticketing systems. So each one of our police vehicles will have its own e-ticketing system, so we won't have to pass that back and forth amongst all of our officers anymore. And I want to say that was maybe around $25,000. So there's a lot of really positive things that we're trying to do with the CARES Act money. On top of that, we recently allocated $230,000 to 10 different Lansing businesses. And I know that was really important to the City Council to make sure that we can support these businesses in a really challenging time. You know, another thing that we did too, this was back in August, but I'll say it again, we allocated over $400,000 to USD 469 to the Lansing School District just to help them fight coronavirus. And quite honestly too, I think it's been going pretty well for the school district, about as well as could be expected. Right. We haven't seen the outbreaks at the school district that so many people thought were inevitable. So they've done a really good job trying to contain this, and I think the city maybe played a small part in that. So there's been a lot of different projects that we've been working on, and it's been great to see the staff and the city council work together to figure out ways where we can benefit Lansing in the midst of a tough time.
Right, right. Well, we're recording this just before Thanksgiving, and I guess maybe with that theme in mind, from a city development perspective, despite COVID, despite the economic downturn that we've heard about throughout the state of Kansas and the Midwest in general, things here are moving locally. Yeah. So talk about some of those things, and some of it we've described before. People obviously know about Quick Trip and the like, but talk about some of the things to the extent that you can. Yeah. Maybe start with McDonald's, because that's public now.
Yeah. So there was a covenant in the town center plat from several years ago that said any restaurant that has drive-through service requires city council approval. So anyway, McDonald's had been looking at some property, or the franchisee owns property in town center, and so they wanted to get the ball rolling on that. So they applied to the city council to have a drive-through restaurant there, and that was approved last week. So I think we're all incredibly excited about that. Now I do want to say though that even though that was approved to have a drive-through restaurant in town center, they still have to go through the building process, the building permit process. They still have to go through site plans. Right. They still have to submit traffic studies. They still have to submit drainage studies. So there's still a lot of work for them to do, and most likely it probably wouldn't open until 2022. So we're still a long ways to go, but this was a very good first step, and it was a public first step.
The ball is moving on this project.
The ball is moving, and then the other thing that I would say about that too, because I know we received citizen feedback about they really want a nice sit-down restaurant, and I agree, I get that. I think the city council agrees with that too. But what's exciting about McDonald's is there are so many businesses that are going to want to be close to that.
Sure.
That's a traffic generator, that's an interest generator. So people are going to want to have their businesses, whether you're an accountant or an engineer or whatever. Right. You're going to want to have your business close to a place that has a lot of foot traffic. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about with McDonald's, is just the interest that it's going to draw on the adjacent properties. Some of the other things that are going on right now too, it's incredibly exciting to see that beautiful new mutual savings building, just right on K7, right next to the Quike stop.
Right.
So we're very
Petro,
the old Petro Deli. Yeah, we're very excited about that. And not only that, I think our citizens can see that new car wash going up directly west of Quick Trip. That's going to be beautiful once it gets done. And then finally, the other thing that I have had a lot of really positive feedback about is the new Harbor Freight. That's going to be going in at K7 and Connie Street. Now, they're not at the finish line yet. They still need to finalize their traffic study and submit that to the city. But other than that, they're getting pretty close to breaking ground, and we're hoping they can break ground in perhaps February and be open late summer, early fall of next year. But it's fascinating. A lot of people really like those Harbor Freight stores, and I went to one a while back, and it was fascinating to see so many tools and really good prices. I think they try to market their tools to people like you and me who maybe aren't professionals but know a little bit enough and can do some home improvement projects at home. So it's really exciting to see mutual savings, the new car wash, Harbor Freight, and soon McDonald's. All of these things are happening. It's really an exciting time to be in Lansing.
Yeah. So we have the Mayor's Christmas Tree program coming up on December 6th. That's a Sunday like we usually do. It's going to obviously be different this year. I think it's scaled back a little bit. Still going to have people there to attend, but there's not going to be any performances and the like. You'll be able to basically come out, socially distance outside, and see the tree be lit. Even after that event is over, though, how can folks continue to contribute to the Christmas Tree Fund? Because, it probably doesn't take a genius to guess that Lansing, like so many other places, we've got more people that are in need this year maybe than in years past. And this is one way that the city tries to help those folks out. But how can people participate?
So at any time all year, folks can still donate money to the Mayor's Christmas Tree Fund. It goes into a completely separate fund that can't be touched for anything else.
Right.
So, in the middle of July, if a person wanted to, they could donate $50 to the Mayor's Christmas Tree Fund. And I know it's important to the City Council to convey that, all of the great things that fund does, it's completely donations. There's not a dime of taxpayer dollars in there. It's all being funded just out of the goodness of a lot of people's hearts. So that's really heartwarming to see. Beyond that, though, there's still a lot of angel tags on the trees right now.
Right.
So I would really encourage people, if you're watching this in the next few days, to stop by City Hall and to pick up some angel tags, because there's still several available. But there's a lot of ways where folks can help out. But it just warms my heart, and I know it warms Mayor Smith's heart, to see so many people come together to help out Lansing residents who have fallen on tough times, and especially kids too.
Right.
So it's just great to see the community come together for such a great cause. It'll be different this year. There's no programs, and it's all outdoors.
Right.
But it is great to see the community come together for such a worthy cause.
And again, that's Sunday, December 6th. I believe that gets underway at 6 p.m. All right, let's wrap it up. January is just around the corner. And when it comes to the 2021 Kansas State Legislature, the pandemic and hopefully the rollout of vaccines by that time, or maybe shortly thereafter, will be underway. How do you see, and I realize this is kind of a nebulous question, but how do you see not only the pandemic, but the vaccine and hopefully crawling out from that hole? How do you see legislative activity being affected, not so much about their attendance and whatnot, but about funding? It seems like we, as a state, aren't going to be hit as hard as they feared 5-6 months ago. However, there are going to be challenges, and when the state has challenges, obviously it filters down to the city. So what are you expecting?
You're right. I read an article in the Capital Journal that talked about how the revenues for the state weren't impacted as adversely as they were originally fearing. So that's been nice to hear. It will be fascinating to see on the federal level, too, if there's another stimulus package that gets passed, if there are funds that get allocated down to the states again.
Right.
And then what we had with the CARES Act was, when the state received money, they passed it down to the counties and the cities. So it will be interesting to see if there's additional legislation passed, if that will get distributed more to counties and cities. And I know there's probably more businesses in Lansing that we could help, and that would be something that would be beneficial if we were able to do that. But I really haven't heard much details about what this next round of funding would look like if the state received money. Obviously, there's always a lot of different topics in Topeka, and you're right, it is a little bit of a nebulous topic because it's hard to gauge what they're going to be discussing. But obviously, KDOT projects, school funding, vaccine distribution, those types of things are also going to be very crucial topics. And I'm sure we'll both be following everything that happens in Topeka this year.
Absolutely. Okay, I've been speaking with Lansing City Administrator Tim Vandall. For Lansing Pulse, I'm Ken Miller.